Okay, so got a little criticism on my first tool review video, and a lot of people that I know that watched it wanted more specifics on the tools you needed to restore the body of a classic car or any car. So that's what we're going to talk about. Most people know about hammers and dollies and their necessity and so on and so forth. So I'm going to talk about some of the specialty things needed for general body work and for car restoration in terms of the body. So what we have over here is, I can't see that too well, maybe. Uh, this is a Unispotter, and essentially what it does is you grab the gun, you can stick it to metal. There's a little piece of metal that comes out as a prong, and it basically allows you, if you can't get to the underside of the panel, you can stick it on, and it allows you to put this puller, which I like these Unispotters the best because they have a chuck in here, and that chuck allows you to turn, and it'll go against the little needle that pops out, so you can get a good tight lock fit, and then it pulls out the dent, and then you could just grind the rest off. So that's one big ticket item. It's like a $230 tool, but you can also get extra fittings, so to speak, and use it as a shrinker. So that brings me to over here. You need a good hammer set. This is for doors. When you're doing like little door panels, you can see the shape of that. This is a Martin hammer, I think. No, this is a US General. This is a Martin hammer. I have another 2 or 3, but I think they're by the car somewhere. But essentially, you need a good hammer and dolly set. I referenced before, some people know about hammers and dollies and you need them, but at the end of the day, they are essential. You should buy them. Usually you want to use the dolly. This is the dolly. You want to use the dolly that matches the contour of the car for what you're doing. So, 2 needed items. So, hammer, dolly set. You can buy them in sets from everything. Another tool that's real good is called a spoon, which is what's over here. This is a spoon, and it's good for if you have a high and low spot. Tap, 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 tap. Gets the metal flat. So this is a spoon. Another few hammer and dollies. So if you look at high-end body shops, they have tons of hammers and dollies to match all kinds of contours. Sometimes you have to make your own. But essentially, you're going to need a good hammer and dolly set. Wrenches, screwdrivers, sockets, I'm not going to cover that. That's pretty basic. Now this tool is good for getting for cutting metal and getting good lines. Like if you were going to cut your quarter panel, this is the tool that I would recommend with it. It cuts a good straight line. You could follow whatever guide you make with this, and all you got to do is start it with like a cutoff wheel, and it'll cut 10 times faster than using a cutoff wheel. Which brings us to the next. It's cutoff wheel. It's a rotary tool. Spins this cutter. So get that. And next critical tool that I'm going to state, it seems rather unobvious, is a air drill. Now the reason why these are critical is because when you're on that car and you try to use a regular drill to, let's say, get out spot wells, your drill is going to die relatively quickly. The great thing about air tools is that they can work all day because they work off of air. They don't have electricity to worry about and motors that overheat to worry about. So that is a critical tool. And then This is an air hammer for separating panels. You can also use it for ball joints. They have different attachments you can put on it, and this is a great tool for those purposes. There's also another trick you can use it for getting off stubborn bolts from like rotors, where you make the yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but you can use it for impacting those bolts to get them off, because some rotors have little annoying screws that rust out that are stuck on there for what seems like forever. And okay, so that's the big critical tools from this section that I normally use. Okay, so if we go to over here, there's a compressor. It's a very big compressor, and you don't need one this big if you're doing everything but paint. You can go with the little 25 gallons. They're great for most mechanical work. I've used one for years with no problems. This is an Ingersoll Rand 60 gallon. I'm probably going to upgrade in a year or two to an 80 gallon 2-stage, but this will do me good until then. Has enough CFM to handle the tools I use. And that brings us the next point, which is you want to get tools at the CFM rating that your compressor can put out, or the tool won't really be that useful. You'll buy a more expensive tool and you're thinking that you're getting optimal conditions, but if you don't have the CFM that is required, you're not gonna be well off. Now there's two ratings when you're looking at a compressor. Usually they're going to give you the CFM rating at 40 psi, and they're going to give it to you at like 90. So depending on what pressure your tool works at, that's what you want to do the math for. I know that from physics, you probably can use the equation of the ideal gas law, or you can use proportionality to determine what the pressure will be at what the CFM will be, or cubic feet per minute will be at that relative pressure. So, and then what we got over here is a 5-stage air dryer and oil separator. So you can see that this works great. I don't need to put in all those excessive garage lines. That will take me forever to do, and is a little bit more expensive, because this is the same cost as that, but I don't have to do half the work. So what we got over here is a MIG welder. This is a TIG welder. Do not need both. I have the TIG because I like to use the TIG for like quarter panels and things like that if I'm splicing together, because with a TIG the welds are soft, they're like annealed, so you can beat on it and the weld won't rupture or break or fracture. And that's the great thing about a TIG welder or TIG welding. MIG welder gives hard, brittle welds. It is very difficult to beat on a MIG weld. It will break on you because the weld is so hard. So, keep that in mind. Not to mention, it's also much easier to start learning on a MIG welder than it is to learn on a TIG. Okay? So, definitely want to look into getting a MIG welder. A gas MIG welder, like MIG welding, not flux welding. MIG welding uses gas, uses a 75-25 mix of CO2 and argon. TIG welders use pure argon. So definitely want to get a MIG. The difference being, just to give a general, the MIG weld with gas is going to provide a much cleaner weld without splatter. The gasless welding or flux is the shielding is essentially in the wire of your MIG welder, and there's no need for gas. That is great if you're going to be welding outside on a windy day. You don't have to worry so much about your shielding with a flux, but it gives tons of splatter everywhere. Okay, more cleanup to do. So MIG welders definitely better welds. So that is that's, you know, but that's ultimately your choice. So what we got over here, I'd say one tool that I could not do half my fabrication work without is a throatless shear, or what's also known as a Beverly shear. Okay, so if you notice, this shear is on an angle, so you can actually make curved cuts in your flat sheet metal. You can make it curved, and that gives you much more flexibility for when you're fabricating pieces. Now, the next tool that I of course couldn't do without is my vise. Critical tool. These two, critical. So that is definitely two things. Everyone knows what a vise is, but you might not know that it's an important tool to buy for restoring a car. Now the last thing on the journey is this little sucker. This is called a flap disc. Now, flap disc is essentially 28 grit sandpaper, but it has like multiple cut pieces of sandpaper on it. And this thing will remove and clean up a weld faster than you can believe. It goes to your angle grinder. I have it to my electric angle grinder, and it will clean up a weld in a quarter of the time a cutoff disc will. So definitely one of the, you can see I have a mountainous amount because I'm removing a lot of, you know, welds. So definitely a key tool. I think that about covers all the critical tools. If I could think of anything else, I'll post it, but essentially those tools will start you off in your restoration project. Everything else it'll come as time builds and as you need. So, till next time.